Wow, you mean the speaker. So when it comes to commission requests and all that what kind of things do you find are challenges, if any? And when I say full commission, I mean 3% and plus. And what I'm signing a lot of right now is a lot of sub 3%. And so I want to kind of get to the bottom of that, because when you look at a 0.5% on a 3%, that is equal to 0.5 divided by 3. That's 16% more. But if you are looking at a 0.5% divided by 2.5, by just doing that, you'll get 20% more income. So that's kind of what we're looking at. Between 3% and 2.5%, difference is 20%. Of course, I tested this and it was working a second ago. There we go. Was there a time when you were getting 3% and it wasn't a problem? Or have you been in the market long enough where it was always?
For me, actually, before the whole lawsuit, I was doing 2.5% on everything. Because that was what was always offered in that notice.
Yeah.
It was 2.5%, so that's what I did with clients. And then once the lawsuit started, they started asking for 3%. And we signed, I would say 95 to 98% of our clients had 3%.
On the buyer side? On the sales side? Okay. All right. And so how did that happen with you guys? Did you just kind of change your mindset?
We decided to start asking for it, and we have a really long conversation with our clients about what that means. How it's negotiated as part of the contract, explaining to them that in general, like a lot of times the seller will pay either all or a portion of that, and that there are different ways to do it. You know, we can offer more money to have it rolled into your mortgage. You know, we kind of have a lot of conversation around that part. So they understand why we're charging 3%. And then I don't know, we are pretty good at explaining why we're worth it. On the sell side, we provide that paper I showed you, you know, that has the levels of service, so they can do a higher or lower amount as well on the sell side.
The sales side.
Yeah. But we found that if you educate people and explain it to them very clearly, they generally would go. Those that really push back, and it's gonna be either 3% or 2.5%, and they won't sign with us, we usually ask them for 3% and say, if we can't negotiate the full 3% to be paid from the seller, we'll be willing to drop it to 2.5% to make the deal go through.
Right.
And then that's our kind of backup if it's gonna make or break the client for us.
Okay. One other thing I wanted to bring in here. No, that would be amendment. Yeah. So what are some of the things that you talk about when you say, let's start with the buyers. So what are some things? Hey, Aga, if you could unmute yourself, so we can just have a good conversation with everybody. What are some things you're saying that get you from 2.5 to 3? Why is 3%? Why are you worth 3%?
Okay, so the first thing we say is our fee is 3%. That's like we present it as what we charge.
So there's an assumption here of this is the cost of doing business.
Exactly.
Okay.
And we don't usually tell them what our fee is until we've gone through the whole process and explained to them all the complexities of everything. So by the time we tell them what we're charging, they know how big our job is. So we're not fighting an uphill battle. We're not starting with the number and then trying to like say, well, this is why. We're saying, this is everything we do for you, and this is what we charge for it.
So what do we say? We lay out the workload or the. So we're gonna be monitoring the market. We're going to be watching for properties that are off market. I say off market that are, well, some the off market, and then we have in our own office, we have office exclusives. We're also pursuing office exclusives with other companies, because I think some buyers don't understand, oh, it's office exclusive, you can't show me that.
Yeah.
And that's not true.
Yeah.
Because the way that our Bright MLS is, you can't stop me from showing the property if you're a member of Bright MLS. So that's part of the thing, laying out the workflow. This is huge. NAR has that, not form, but they have a flyer that explains, these are the 100 and some things that I do for you. It has everything from I'm putting your name in my system, and maybe some of that stuff I'm like, well, of course you're putting them in the system, but if I don't tell them you're now linked up with us, we've got a file on you, we put that in. Okay, that's another piece of work. Yeah. Okay, so that's something else that we talked about there. So when you go through all of this, do you have a certain number with the sheet that you have?
Sorry?
The sheet you have, is that with buyers as well?
No, we don't do that for buyers. We have like a slide deck that we go through with buyers, so they see, all of that in a slide deck. We tried to do a sheet for buyers, it just doesn't really work very well, and we didn't want to give our buyers necessarily the option to choose the lower amount, because the way that Megan does all our buyers and the way that Megan works is she can't work less. Like there's no difference for her.
You're right. There's less you can do on the listing side. Buyer side, I can't. What is it you don't want me to do?
Exactly. There's buyer and but as a seller, you definitely can. And they almost always choose the 3%. I've never had a seller choose 3%.
Do you do a change, and jump in anytime you want, Aga as well? Do you do I forgot my top, what I was gonna ask. Anyway. Yeah. So it is the rundown of what you're gonna do, setting the expectation. We charge 3%. I charge 3%. Have they ever asked why? Why is it 3%? I thought we could negotiate that.
We explained to them, yes, it is negotiable. And we talk about at that point how we're going to negotiate it as part of your contract, your sales contract for offer.
Right.
So we explained it to them in terms of, we negotiate for it to be paid by the seller's side. But of course, if they push really hard and say, like everybody else, we've got someone else who says they'll do it for 2.5, and you match that, then we'll have that conversation and say yes or no. But
Is that usually after you've done your whole presentation?
Yeah, and it usually actually is done in email.
Okay.
When they go to sign it, they usually have a response that's almost, I would say like 90% of the time, they send the response either by email or text message. And
passive.
Yeah, and so then Megan has a really solid response that she sends to them. It's like, this is it. This is what she sends, and she explains exactly what that fee is.
And you had that all set up right there, though.
Yeah, because I was looking at it when we started this, because it's really brilliant what she sends them. And when she sends that email, we very rarely get pushback after that once they understand how it works. And then if we do have, like I said before, if we do have real pushback, then we'll say, all right, if we can't get it negotiated full 3% as part of the contract, we'll drop it to 2.5 so you could win the deal.
Right.
And I'm more likely to do that than Megan is as well, because
Yeah.
my team, and it's easier for me to drop my commission,
Right.
right? Because I'm getting full commission where she's only getting 50%. So she is way less willing to drop it and way more willing to fight for it.
Yeah. Right. This is what I come back to. I'm sorry, it's when they do push back, I'll say, well, here's the thing. My expenses don't change just because I'm charging less. And my cost of living doesn't change. And inflation's hit me too. But the value I bring, and I think that's what we want to talk about is, what are the values that you bring to the table that others don't? And one of the things that I bring up here is, are you aware that 87% of all agents fall out of business in the first 2 years? Oh, no, I didn't know that. Yeah. So when you see there's 1.5 million agents, I've been doing this for X years. I'm not one of the 87%.
Yeah.
And some people are saying, yeah, it's negotiable and we can do this. And I'm like, well, then they get, well, what can you give back to me on that? What's the rebate? And so that's where I always say, well, let me do my work first. Let me see what the contract can look like at the tail end of that. And if you're not happy with what I've done here, then we can obviously have a discussion on my compensation.
Yeah.
Does that sound fair to you? Does that sound fair? Yeah. And that's another thing I always say. Does that sound fair? I don't let the conversation go without saying, does that sound fair to you? Because then they have to admit, well, that does sound fair. Okay, give me the opportunity to earn my fee in the negotiation process. It's negotiable, yes, between you and me right here, right now, but where's it really going to show up? It's going to show up in the contract. And that's where we really want to talk about, let me negotiate that. I'll tell you this right now, more agents since the NAR settlement are getting more pay. And I think the reason being is that with the Bright MLS, we were told what we were going to get. And now it's like, no, I'm going to tell my client everything I'm going to do for them and why I'm getting X.
Yeah.
So when we look at the compensation, the way I'm going to flow this, folks, this is a conversation today. Okay, it's not a B, C. Here's my slides, as you can see, right up here behind me, is what's happened is even though we now have more negotiation. I am still seeing a lot of 2.5s coming on the buyer broker compensation. I'm saying you now have the opportunity to ask for 3. Why are we cutting ourselves at the knees and taking 20% less money? To do 20%, it means if you keep doing 2.5 all the time and never ask for it, then what's going to happen with you is you're going to have, for every 5 that you sell, you're going to have to sell 1 more to make as much money as the agent who sold 4 at 3%. Or 5. They sold 5 at 3%. You're selling 5 at 3%. You got to sell 1 more to make the same amount of money. Okay. So that's kind of where I'm looking at that is our fee is 3%. And so, but you talk about this after presentation. Now, right on that. Who do we have in here? Let's see here. All right, Chanel, Sherry, good, Aga, and me. All right. Got a lot of emails today. Is this going to be online? Yeah, it can be online. I got more than this, but thanks for those that have showed up today. Thank you, Aga. Thank you, Chanel. Thank you, Sherry. And so let's talk about, this is open. There's no judgment. I've done deals for 2.5. I've done deals for 1.75. Okay.
For a $3,000 flat fee.
Flat fee, 3,000. We are not saying if you can't get 3, don't do it. But I'm just saying, let's start the discussion up here and come down from there. So y'all open up your microphones and tell me how has this discussion gone with either buyers or sellers on this discussion about 3 versus 2.5? I really want some participation here today.
I never had to really discuss. It seems like whatever I put, they don't discuss
So you're
stuff.
putting 4? That's amazing.
No, no, no. I mean, I go like sometimes I go and I know it's probably wrong and you guys gonna smash me right now, but when
No,
I
no.
have a client that I know they're like really poor, like my last couple that was buying their first condo and the budget was 200,000, so I was like, oh, what am I gonna make? Nothing anyway, almost nothing. So I was more lenient than, in other cases, right? But then like I didn't have so many sales or buyers to really talk, but I never had that somebody would like challenge me, like, why this? Why are you doing it? So because of that, I put free and then if needed, I adjust.
Okay. All right. And anyone else, when is have you ever gotten the interview? Well, Anthony, what do you charge right up front? Y'all know I have answers to this, so I want to hear what I want to hear what y'all are facing in the marketplace.
You know what? I don't feel like we've had that because we get all of our clients through referral.
Referral.
So it's a friendly conversation instead of like a business meeting in a lot of ways.
Right.
I think that also changes the conversation, especially if it's somebody that paid like their friend who referred you. They assume that they paid the full 3%. So they're like, well, my friend paid that and thought it was worth it. We must be worth it, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
Yeah.
And that's the good part. And on that one, I'll go through it here in just a second on what I do when I do wind up giving a discount of some sort. Does anyone have oh, you're selling with me? Great. On the back end, we can do X.
We do that.
You do that.
Yeah. Less than we used to, but we will. If there's 2 deals involved, then usually.
How are you? Good.
We usually will drop one of them by 0.5%.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is we would prefer to do it on the listing side for me, that I take the drop, but we only do it on the second deal, and that's usually the purchase.
Mm-hmm.
Because what you don't want to do is drop it on the listing side, and then they don't end up buying
Exactly.
you, and then you've just dropped it.
That's exactly what I was going to talk about. We'll talk about that there. Any other comments or questions on just the 3, getting from 2.5 to 3, or 2 to 3, or 2 to 2.5, or whatever?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, Sherry.
Okay. I actually feel like for the deal I had allowed in the beginning of the year, in the beginning, I had applied for 3, and that's what they agreed to. But they had wanted to do a total of 4 for both sides, 2 and 2, because San Francisco, Los Angeles was doing it for 4.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So I think that was another probably issue with that. I mean, I don't know, that situation. So
yeah, expectation from another market.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. And I think that's yeah, go ahead, Chanel.
What I could say is like for the last transaction that I did, I represented the seller. So I had to explain at one point that, the compensation is you have to compensate the buyer too. And he was like, why do I have to compensate the buyer? I thought there was a change in the law or legislation that says we don't have to do certain set a certain type of an amount and you don't have to pay the other. So I had to explain to him, hey, if we do go down that road, you are excluding a lot of potential buyers, that would want to get compensated, like their realtor, and especially you're excluding potential like person that has veterans benefits. That's what my coach said, that you could exclude them because they can like their buyer cannot compensate the realtor. I don't know if that's true 100%, but that's what I've been told. Like if you have
It
someone
used
has
to
a
be that
VA,
way. And that's a good point where you have to explain to them, well, that's the way it used to be. Now the veterans can compensate. So VA jumped on that right away. Well, if they're going to have to pay for their own compensation, we can't have in our program that they can't do that anymore. So that has changed in the program. So, and you'll find that a lot of folks will still grapple with old ways of doing business. Y'all wouldn't know this, but you know that 500,000 exemption on revenue from the sale of a home that's tax-free, and the 250,000 for single sellers. Y'all know that, right? You don't have to pay taxes on the first 250 if you're a single seller, or 500 if you're a married filing jointly. Well, before that came into being, the way it worked is you had to pay taxes, and you got one rollover that you didn't have to pay taxes. So you can imagine how that changed the market, where people were like, okay, because what you had to do was, this is back in the day when an expensive house was $350,000. You would sell your 350, and you would have to buy something for 350 or higher to escape taxes. Like a 1031. Everyone was treated like a 1031. And I want to say it was like 1997 or something. They passed the code and changed it. Said, you know what? Every 2 years, you sell a house, you can make up to 250 as a single, 500 as a married couple, filing jointly, and you don't have to pay taxes on that. And boy, that really started getting the ball rolling. Now they're looking at increasing that to $1 million and $500,000, because they realize 1997 was almost 30 years ago now. It's 29 years this year. So they realize a lot of people are hitting that. That's not what we meant to have happen. And some sellers will sit back and not sell because of that. I digress a little bit. But what I'm pointing out is that sometimes buyers and sellers will start spouting old data, old information, and you do have to explain that to them, what's going on. So let's go through the form very quickly, and this is the way I'll be doing this, and we'll stop and talk about each point of where you could increase your revenue. Okay. And I had an eraser. There it is. So to review here, our fee is 3%. What the Zimic team does is they don't talk about it till after, but do they talk about it before, or do you just say, well, we'll get to that in a minute? Does that ever come up?
Yeah, we'll say, yeah, actually, we're gonna go over all the costs of a real estate transaction as part of our presentation. So we'll talk about everything
Right. And I think that right there is a demonstration of how does my presentation flow? And I'm not answering it, but I'm helping you to see. We're going to cover all the costs because my compensation is not the only thing.
Yeah.
So we'll get to that in just a few moments. And most people, if they're polite and professional, will say, oh, okay, no problem. So you're waiting till after the presentation or toward the end. You're laying out the workflow of everything you're going to do. So first thing I would say to buyer agents, if you're not laying out your workflow, you're setting yourself up to be negotiated at 20% more money. Okay. And if you're talking our average price of a house here in our area, that's 800,000. 0.5% is $4,000. Imagine if you do 10 deals a year, that's 80 grand. It's 40 grand that you're saying bye-bye to just because you didn't hold the line on your compensation. That doesn't even take into account then, and we're going to talk about that, is in the heat of the moment, toward the end, of the
crap.
transaction. Something happens and then suddenly they want you to pay for it. And now you're paying it out of the 2.5. Okay, instead of the 3. And what I call that is sometimes you do that. It's called make it happen money. All right, no problem. Let's make that happen. I am more happy about making that happen when I'm getting 3 than when I'm getting 2.5 or less. I've told some people, because I have had some where I go right in and say, we're selling your house a lot sooner than what we were supposed to. Particularly, this was one where there was a death of the owner, and the mom was selling the house. I had helped him sell his condo, buy this one. He passed away unexpectedly, and now we're selling. And so I went in knowing, yeah, I could take advantage of it. Hey, here's what I charge. But for her, I said, look, let's do this. Here's what I'm going to do. And we came in less. But when it came to the end, well, that's going to cost us 7 cents. Yeah, I've already given mine at the table. I've already given my compensation. So they took care of all the other expenses. So the other piece is, if you don't have a layout of your workflow, I've sent out the NAR flyer several times. I'll do it again after today's session. There's an NA flyer on what I do to sell your house. I have another folder called what I do to help you buy a house. And on those, by the way, if you don't know, I have 2 notebooks. One's for, I said, the forms to sell your house, the forms to buy your house. And I demonstrate to them in physical format all the forms I train on, so that they see, wow, that's like, I said, yeah, it's over 100 pages on each side. And if it gets deeper and deeper, we could get even deeper than that. I have every form in there. I have every addendum, every post ratification form. I have everything in that notebook. And in the front of it, I have the NAR flyer that I go through. This is what it's going to take to buy your house. Not necessarily, this is what I'm going to do for you, but this is what it's going to take to buy a house. This is what it's going to take to sell a house. They need to see, I'm not just showing properties and collecting a check at the end of the transaction, which is what a lot of people think that's all we do. You're a taxi service. And if we don't demonstrate this and let them control the conversation about all the agents that just do diddly squat in this business, that's where I also talk about, I'm not a diddly squat agent. Never had to use that term, diddly squat. But I do use the term, let me show you the value I bring to the table. Let's start with my longevity and experience in the business to start with. This is my 31st year. Do you know how many agents make it to 31 years? All right. And then I say, do you know how many agents make it for 2 years? And they just go, no. I said, 87% of agents do not make it past year 2. Okay. And that's because it's time to renew my CE, time to renew all my memberships. And guess what? I haven't sold anything. And so I'm not in that category of just giving up what I charge because I'm begging for a commission check, because I know what it takes to do that. You have it in a slide deck, you have it in a presentation, in a notebook. And then toward the end, what I want to show that in just a few moments is, if you get them to this higher level, I do give them a understanding that it is negotiable, and it's negotiable all the way to closing. I even have another form, and I bring that form out. It's the brokerage agreement amendment form. We can change this here, because a lot of folks, sometimes they're afraid to sign that because they think I'm in, I can't get out of this. I can't say, look, there's a lot of things that might happen in this transaction, and I am here to help you. I'm not, and what I use this term, I'm not going to damage you financially. And they like that. I said, if we have to, no problem, broker agreement amendment, and we'll get more what that looks like in just a moment. So on the buyer side, you have your compensation, the amount of blank % of gross sales price, a flat fee, and or. And so this is where some folks will put whatever fees in here. We had Becca just said, yeah, sometimes I've done it for flat fee. I've done it for flat fee. So you just use the dollar part. All right. Here's another area of paragraph 8 where you could be bringing in more income. I'll talk more about the retainer fee on the tenant level, because I've never charged a retainer fee on the buyer side. Never thought it was necessary. In today's market, maybe I'll change that. But let's get to C, broker service fee. I charge $4.95. That's me, Anthony Carr. And because me flying around and doing all this work does not entail the expenses I have outside of me flying around doing all this work. And that's going to be the fee that covers my transaction and some administrative costs. Overwhelming majority of our agents here do not charge any other kind of fee. So let's talk. Does anyone here, who charges a fee? You charge, I charge, Aga charges, Chanel, Melanie, I don't see you. Well, Melanie's just logging in.
Only to buyers though,
You charge only to buyers. Why is that?
because we feel like our sellers are already having to pay two commissions. And so we've never charged it for the seller.
Okay.
Um,
So what she says, she charges this on the buyer side, but not with the seller side. Because she feels like the seller's already paying a lot of expenses. Yeah. And they're paying 2 commissions. And so why are they paying one more thing? So what I'm hearing is that is taking a perspective of, I'm watching out after their expenses. Love ya, not my income. Yeah. Okay. So that's kind of where I see that is what's going on there. If there's a bonus, there's another one here, E, retention of excess compensation. Broker may not receive any compensation, including fees, which exceeds the amount set forth in the agreement. This is a place where I will let them know, look, let me negotiate for 3. Because if we say 2.5 here, I cannot even negotiate to get more to meet the fee here for you.
Yeah.
If I'm charging you 3 and I can't negotiate up to that, can you make up the difference? Did you hear how I said that? Can you make up the difference versus can you pay the rest?
Yeah.
It's a psychological thing of, yeah, I can make up the difference. Right. On an $800,000 house, that's $4,000 if we needed to do that. That takes away my need to even talk about the broker agreement amendment if they can make up the difference. Okay. Are they in a relocation program? Boy, I just saw one really recently, 50%. And they'll just find another agent is what they'll do.
It's crazy. And it's even worse if it's like a referral from somebody else too. Then you have to give
Yeah.
all of it to them and then you have to give another referral fee out and you're not making any money in the end.
Right. Now, one thing on the relocation program is I asked the buyer or the seller, what are you getting in benefit from that relocation? Because what you can do is, and I honestly, where I've really used this before is when someone says they're a USAA member or a PenFed member. I get this credit. I'll match that. But if you can get them to bypass the relocation program, if all they're getting from the relocation department is some money and they have to get this 50%, the buyer never sees, the client never sees what the relocation company's charging me. Okay. So this is where you want to see if they even know what they're getting. If they're getting a huge amount, like they're paying all my moving fees, they're doing this, they're putting me up in a hotel. Okay, I get it. That relocation fee that the relocation company is pulling out of this transaction is to help finance their relocation package. Yeah. If it's just a discount, then I may look at, well, what are you getting and how much are you keeping of that? Well, they're going to charge you 30, Anthony, and I'm going to get 25. How about if I just get 25 and you bypass the relocation? Okay. So that's the area there on the buyer agreement of compensation. Now, Broker service fee, how can you talk about that a little bit more in depth? To them be okay with paying that?
One thing we always say is, you don't pay me anything unless I get you to the closing table.
Right.
So we make it very clear that none of this is done outside of the closing table.
Right.
And then we say, and it's wrapped up in your closing fees.
Okay. So when we're talking about the broker service fee or the transaction, I call it a flat commission, and they call it a fee. Something came down a few years ago, like 10 years ago or so. Oh, so you're charging commission plus it's a junk fee. And that's what some people would say, just so you can grab more money. And so what we're saying is no pay till closing. And that means no closing, no pay. So I only get compensation if you win. That's a good thing about this. And you won't get the same benefit from your doctor or your lawyer. You lose, you go to jail, you still owe them. You don't get better, you're sick, you go to the hospital, you still owe them. There is no silver and bronze in real estate. Okay. And these are phrases that I use because they can take that and go, oh, yeah, okay, I see. I'm only going to get paid if I win. Exactly. Now, closing, it doesn't mean there's no expense to them as a buyer. They still have the home inspection. And that's probably where you're putting, here's all your expenses that you're going to run into. Okay. But the broker service fee, I don't know. Even if you just charge what you're going to get charged by your transaction coordinator, and I see that anywhere from $350 to $600 for transaction coordinator. I've seen broker fees of $1,400 and $1,500. So there's a lot of room there, and this is up to you. For our newer agents who have joined the company since like 23, we tell you put in $250. Okay, you need to put in $250 because that's a broker service fee to help support the office information. If you're not here past 23, then you can put whatever number you want. For the longest time, it was hard for me to get over 300. Not get it, but in my mind.
Yeah.
Wow, $300. And then I just thought, well, I'm getting 3 and I'm charged 400. What am I doing here? So I just popped it to 495. 400 goes to my TCC, and I make another $95. Yeah. So and here's what I would say on the broker service fee. Try it. Okay. Just put it on there. Aga, you're smiling on that. When was the first time you started charging a broker fee?
I don't know. I think like 2 or 3 transactions, and I was scared to death. Now I love it. Now I don't even, yeah. But I really thought they're gonna, like, one of them asked me, actually at the closing table, he asked Shannon, like, why is there? He didn't notice that in the contract, although we talk about it, he didn't remember, so.
Right. Yeah, and so the dialogue I use on broker service fee is, now, here's my compensation. And I just say, now all these fees we're about to look at, unless we win, I don't get paid any of them. Okay, you're not on the dime for any of them. Me going out, showing properties, negotiating, coordinating, showing up for you, holding your hand, doing all that stuff is what I'm getting from the transaction. Once we're under contract, I have other expenses that are thrown at me to get us to closing, and the $495 helps compensate that. I honestly don't even have to say that much. I just say, and my broker service fee is $495, and we keep on moving.
We see what it's for. We say, as soon as we get you under contract, it gets passed to DC, the transaction coordinator, and she makes sure all your deadlines are hit, that all the paperwork is done properly, that nothing is missed, that everything goes, so your money is protected and the deal is protected, everything moves smoothly, and this is what this gets you.
So you just don't think about that at the table. You actually have it in a script. Yeah.
Can I ask who is talking so nicely?
I'm sorry. That's Becca Zemek.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
The room is loaded with people, but she's the only one talking. This is great. She came in, she goes, where is everybody? I guess they're gonna show up online, and then she takes a back row seat, so I'm yelling at her to. Yeah, for sure. We should have more plugs installed. Anyway, but that's the broker service fee. And I really would like you guys to start adding that because it's going to increase your pay. And when you're calculating, I'm taking someone out for 500,000, I'm gonna get my 2.5. Okay, that's roughly 12.5, and then my split and all that. Then suddenly, boop, when you start getting this fee, oh yeah, there's that brokerage fee that I'm charging. And if you don't have a TC, you can still charge it because now you're doing the work of the TC. Okay, you're still doing the extra work. And we'll talk about when you're doing extra work, you should get extra pay. What other job in the country where someone does extra work where they don't get paid for it?
Musician.
Time and a half is.
Musician.
Yes. Practice again. Practice. Yeah, that's true. Yeah. You only get paid for the concert, right? That's it. Show up for the.
No, we get paid for the rehearsals, but we don't get paid for all the hours of practice.
Yeah, at home.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. Good point. That's a good one. I'll start saying that. Realtors and musicians. Same kind of thing. Okay. All right. So all of this is in the buyer broker agreement. And I would just encourage everyone to start filling these blanks out with money, not zeros. The retainer fee, again, that's one I haven't crossed yet. So apparently some agents, because this retainer fee, this has been here for decades. So there's some agents out there making money up front. And what this is on a retainer fee is they pay it up front and it's earned once you get it. There is no refund on it. Now you could say I'll subtract it from any compensation due if we go to closing. But if you don't go and they cancel you, then you could hang on to the retainer fee. That's kind of where that goes. I've not crossed the bridge on that. Has anyone crossed the bridge on the retainer for buyers? No.
Buyers.
Let's go see some properties.
We do it for listings though.
Yeah.
And
Let's do the same thing when we're talking about representing the buyer or the tenant. Same place here. Now, here's what I see. A lot of agents are still trapped in their mind because it's all about mindset on this. What is my value versus what's the standard or usual cost? I got this dialogue from a movie. There was a guy talking with another guy about a piece of art. And the one that was explaining the piece of art was the artist or the one who appreciated art. And the one who was not, who was, of course, the protagonist of the movie who fights bad guys, says, wow, that's what it cost? And the artist looked at him and said, no, that's what it's worth. And I love that phrase. And so that's what I'm worth to the marketplace, to make sure that you're taken care of. So when it comes to the tenant broker compensation, if you're popping in here what has usually been in the marketplace, I think you're shortchanging yourself. Again, well, I'm going to get, 25%, 20%. Why not try 30%? I think a lot of times we don't get paid more because we don't ask. So 30%, and there again, if I can get 30%, great, no problem. If not, can you make up the difference? Now on a rental, what are we talking about here?
it's like $200.
It's like $200.
Not even for a lot of them.
So if you get, so it's $200, and tell us it's about $200. It's $3,000. It's $150 on a $3,000 system. We're gonna float around a lot, and we're gonna be driving to a lot of places. So I charge 30% of the first full month's rent. And if it's 25%, then you just ask them, now sometimes I can't get the 30% from the landlord. Will you be able to make up the difference? So for instance, Bob, it's $3,000, just so you know, it's about $150. Oh yeah, so for me, it's 3 tanks of gas. I'll probably eat that up just showing you properties. Retainer fee. I started teaching this one back around 22. Say, why aren't we asking for retainer fee? You know who the first agent was that did this? He was brand new agent. He didn't know any better. And he walks in the door and he had 3 checks for $150 each. He goes, what do I do with these? I'm like, what are they? He goes, well, you told us to start collecting the retainer fee, so I got 3 of them. And so I said, go talk to Debbie. So I thought the new guy's getting it because he just says, yeah, to get me started, it's $150. I'm going to tout Emma here. Emma does a great job. She's heard that. She started doing it. And the way she says the retainer fee is like, look, I have no qualms that you're probably going to see some other properties out there besides the ones I show you, right? Well, yeah, I probably will. Say, great. If you wind up renting that, that's fine without me. But what I do is I charge a retainer fee because I'm going to do a lot of work before we get to that point. And that helps absorb the expenses that I know I'm going to have as we go out and see properties for rental. So I think she charges $150 or $200. I charge $200. And they pay it. And so I get $200 and then I get 30%. Let's say it's a $3,000 piece. That's 3 times 3. I get $900 plus $200. I'm getting $1,100 on a rental. That makes rentals not look so bad. Okay. Again, you could do another broker service fee. I'm not charged on that one. Yeah, Aga.
So do they just write you a check for that retainer fee, or how does this work?
Yeah, they can write a check. We do have a wiring service. Check that and just go. If it's a check, you just make it out KW United, give that to Debbie, and then she'll cut your check back on whatever your portion is of that.
Okay,
So yeah, and so it's money right there, right up front. It's earned when you get it. There isn't that they don't, and I would say will not be subtracted for any compensation due broker.
You know, they subtracted from me, Anthony, when I had the retainer fee.
No, I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, we do. We still, until we cap, it's our solicitor.
Okay.
I'm telling the tenant, it will not be subtracted from any compensation due the broker.
Oh, gotcha. Hmm.
So I'm getting $900. I'm not going to give them $200 back.
The broker takes a cut of the,
Yeah,
do they take a cut of the service fee or no?
I don't think so.
I didn't think so either, I just can't remember.
Yeah. I should know that. Again, relocation program. I don't know a relocation program on a rental. I've never had that. Have you ever had that? You deal more in that State Department world.
State Department, it's not relocation programs, it's the government.
All right, got it. The main thing on this one is on tenant broker compensation is go for 30%. And what I'm saying is quit living your business practices in the past experiences we've had. That's what I'm trying to get through here. Yep.
We switched ours last year, 2 years ago, and we have had 0 people push back on it. Everyone's happy to pay it,
Can I ask what you're charging?
30%.
30%.
And we may go up again.
Yes.
Just because it's so much work.
It's what?
It's so much work. It's
Right.
the same amount of work that you're doing for a buyer and getting 3% of a sales price is,
Yeah,
you know, in a lot of cases.
yeah.
So,
My fee is 35%.
you know, in New York City, like the standard is that you pay a full month's rent to your
Tenant?
the tenant pays their broker a full month's rent just to help them find a place.
Wow.
Yeah, and sometimes even more.
Mhm.
Some of them charge like a $10,000 flat fee to help people move into a place, because that
Wow.
rent's up there, and they were like, no, we had to pay a full entire thing. That's their standard there. It's just different out here.
So other markets can help you make more money. I think a lot of this is more about believability in yourself, believability in what it really costs you to do this business. Okay, because when you see what it's really costing you to do this business, okay, maybe 30% is not enough. Maybe I do need 35%. And again, that one is paid once you find them the property. As far as the percent is concerned, The retainer fee is paid up front. Okay. Now,
So, Anthony, do you just collect that additional 15% after, like, along with the lease signing, or?
the retainer fee?
No, if you are charging 30 or 35% and the
only getting
listing agent is
25.
only paying out 25.
Yeah. You just say, here's the fee, because if they're the tenant and you're representing the tenant, they're gonna make a check out to, ABC Real Estate. Then they need to make another check out to KW United for the remainder.
I have a question
Gotcha.
on that.
Well, one of my,
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Melanie.
oh, sorry. I was just saying one of my friends with the KW Metro Center, I think she charges like 40%, but she doesn't tell her clients initially that the listing agent may be paying out 25%. She just says, the fee is 40%. And then when she gets, when she finds them something, it's like, hey, I was able to negotiate that the listing agent would pay 25% of that. So now you, only pay, the remaining 10 or 15%. And then they're like so grateful, like, she's the best negotiator in the world. So they are grateful now to pay her 15% because, initially they were thinking that they would be on the hook for the whole thing.
Right. Well, in
like,
the paragraph A here, it does say if broker receives any compensation from landlord, or landlord's representatives for services by this agreement, that amount will be credited toward tenant's obligation to pay broker compensation. Just a point, a lot of these forms are so wordy, because they're trying to take into account what could happen in this point of the transaction. What I look for when I've got a lease or a contract from an attorney or from someone that went and got it at Home Depot, and you can get forms at Home Depot. They don't cover every little aspect. What's the aspect on this one right here? If broker receives any compensation from landlord or landlord's representative for services covered by this agreement. So it's laying out every little thing that can go. And this is a sidebar, sorry about that. But when I say when you're writing these addenda, you want, what do you want? And what's the deadline? And what happens if it's not met? When you're writing something up like that in an addendum, in most of the pre-printed paragraphs, there's a consequence at the end of the request if it's not done. Like the home inspection addendum, if it's not done, it says, hey, we can go after the seller after closing. So it's already in the contract. But if you're writing something yourself, you want to make sure that what do I want, when do I want it done, and what happens if it doesn't get completed as a buyer agent. Anyway, that's free for today, just so you all know. Okay.
I do have a question on that.
Yeah.
Is our brokerage planning to do anything like getting Zocam or something to make it easier for our clients to pay those fees?
That I don't know.
Because now that they are often paying the difference in things, it is really sometimes really complicated trying to get them to do the wire, because then they have to pay a wire fee and maybe a check or whatever, especially for us because all our clients are overseas. So mailing a check isn't an option, and then wiring is really hard. But something like Zocam, where you can just do the picture of the check, or like all the title companies, is super helpful.
Yeah. I'll put that down there. Plus also there's I know Venmo has a business account.
Exactly, or Zelle, like all
Yeah.
of these things have to, everybody's always asking us, can't I just Zelle or Venmo it to me? And I'm like, well, I'm really sorry you can't. Just pass it to my broker.
Right.
And our broker banks with like John Marshall Bank.
Right, exactly.
Most ancient banking institution.
I'm gonna write that down and see if we can pursue that for this year. That would just make it so much easier. Who used to use Zocam? I think Universal Title used it, and now they use something else. Yeah.
But
Which that makes it so easy. Yeah. Okay. All right. So this is the tenant. We had the buyer. And now we've got buyer. We did that one. right to lease. Again, this is where I see a few mistakes here. Okay. On compensation. Landlord will pay broker total compensation of blank percent of the first full month's rent. And I'm not sure anyone on this call is doing this, but I will see agents regularly put down less than a full month. And I'm like, what are you doing? Why are you? Well, these people are XYZ. And I will just let you know, most of the complaints we get on transactions are rentals. Okay. So it's the least amount of money, but the highest level of risk. So, and then we always, I constantly get calls from agents. They're in the middle of the, not the transaction, but it's done. And now it's 6 months later and the landlord's calling because they're having problems with the tenant, or the tenant's calling because they're having problems with the landlord, and they want you to enter in. So that 100% is well earned. And in the world of rentals, you are more likely to get 100% in both sides of that transaction than you are elsewhere in any other transaction. So number one, put 100%. Just do it. This is just I don't understand. It's a $3,000 transaction, and that's about the average rent for a single family home now. So there's $3,000 on the table. Let's say you do 4 of those a year. That's $12,000. That is a good compensation now for rentals as the listing agent. If I get 100% and it's over $3,000, I then offer 30% out.
Oh, you do?
Because I have been there. I have been that. And if you're a good tenant agent, but then what I put in the MLS, and no one's dinged me yet, tenant agent must have shown property to claim compensation. I'm not going to give someone compensation for someone who came to my open house and says, oh, I got an agent. Yeah, but they didn't show you the property. They sent you here without showing it. And what are they going to do with the application? Oh, go here and fill it out. They've done nothing. They're not even filling out the lease. So I say, if you didn't show it, I don't have an evidence that you came to my open. I don't have an evidence that you did a lockbox entry. Don't come in here with your hand out looking for 30%. Okay. Again, this session is about making more money in your business by just the practices that you're putting out there as a agent. I think there's probably 10, maybe 15 or 20% of compensation that we could be getting if we just change the way that we are exercising how we do our own business, what we charge and how we charge it. Okay. So tenants broker compensation, you could do X, you could do a flat fee if you want to do that. Because sometimes you start at 3 and you wind up coming down to 28. And now you're offering 30%. I cut a lot when I do that. So it might be just a flat fee is a better way to go. $1,000. I think most agents would appreciate $1,000 on any rental. Yeah. So that's what I do. What do you do?
We do 25%.
Yeah. Have you ever gotten applications where they want 30%?
No, but no, we haven't ever gotten it. We've asked for it before ourselves. That's what we charge, but no, we only give 25%, and
When you have tenants, you put 30% down though. Yeah.
So we've asked for it.
Right. And so that's on you get the tenant brokerage compensation amendment and you cross out the 25 and put 30 and send it back. Is that how you do that?
We send it over requesting 30. Usually we'll just create the document in the first place.
Oh, I see.
Send it over to them.
All right, did y'all get what she's doing there? You know that form we're talking about. It's the tenant brokerage fee form. I don't think I pulled it up here. You should be asking for that early on But what they're doing is they're creating it themselves and sending it over.
And you need to have it signed. We had a situation this year where we got a tenant in. Lease is signed, and then the tenant backed out of the property and they tried not to pay us. But the form says specifically that move-in is not required, it's just due on a signed lease, not on the move-in to the property. And so they did end up having to pay us. Because we did do all the work to get them in there, because the tenant had backed out. Because they were like, because the tenant lost their security deposit.
Yeah.
So make sure you now, and that was a luckily we had gotten it signed, and now we get it signed every single time, just to make sure.
So this agreement here is between the brokerages. So what I'm hearing from you is as soon as you're doing application, you're sending this over signed. And you're saying,
we're sending it to get signed immediately.
right. So
And
they're not sending it to you as a listing brokerage. Go ahead and put it together. But what you're doing is like, don't even worry about what they're saying. Send it over. I've signed it. You send it over and you got 30% off. And then they can call you and say, well, we're only doing 25%.
Yeah, we have it signed with our initial documents, so we have it ready to go.
With your buyer?
Yeah, with our tenant.
Your tenant?
And with our landlord. So
Oh,
it's
that's a
ready
good
to go
idea.
either way, so you're not having to then like try to get it signed really quickly, so it's ready to go whenever you need it.
That's a good practice. I don't know if y'all heard that or not, but what they're doing is at the time of tenant brokerage agreement signing, they also get this completed and have me sign it. And then they're sending that over to the,
Is that, I actually have a question about that, because we do it that way, but I'm not 100% sure it's legal because we don't have the name of rental on the premises. They have to add that. So that's maybe questionable, but.
well, if you get a signature,
Okay. Kind of help me feel.
yeah. Anything to nail that down, because because remember this piece of it. Yeah, I got something here, I know.
There you go.
Here we go. In the lease, this is where in Virginia, we have maintained that we as a brokerage pay out. It's not like the the contract, because the contract has a place to do it. There is no application in today's world where I put in there and this is what I'm going to get as part of the application. So here, and this is where part of the challenge here is when an agent puts 50% in here or 75% in here. I saw one agent put 25% and then they put 25% here. And I said, do you realize you're getting zero? And they didn't get that. They thought they were adding it together.
Oh.
All right. That's not what's happening. You're taking it out of here.
Well,
Total compensation.
it helps being able to say, I'm gonna pay, if somebody else brings a tenant, I'm gonna pay them.
Oh, that's good.
That's what I say. I say, I'm paying that out of my commission, so there's no extra fees for you if they're bringing somebody. I'm gonna go ahead and pay them out of mine, so that's included. People are like, oh, that's so great.
Right.
Yeah.
It really is the way that you formulate these discussions. And I mean, it's this whole thing of negotiating your pay, what are you worth? What's the value? Because the concern that the challenge that consumers have, all they see is the money at the bottom line of closing. All they see is the money that's coming across the table during a rental. And they're like, wow, they rented that out in 2 weeks and I'm giving them $3,000.
But
That's how it sounds and how it looks.
it only sounds that way if you don't tell them everything
Right.
you're doing. I'm gonna be doing the showings. I'm gonna get professional photos taken. I'm gonna come meet you. let you know what needs to be fixed or repaired or done to make the property look great. You know, I'm gonna advertise it not only on the MLS, but on all these different websites. That was what we say too, we're like, we syndicates out to all these websites and we put it on Zillow, so that gets out to Zumper and Hot Pats. We say everything.
Yeah.
And then we're like, we also put it on all these different Facebook pages, specialized marketing just for you. If you do all that, they're like, oh, wow, that's so much work.
Right. Because if they think they're going to do, for rent by owner, my last rental was a rent by owner person who I had gotten in the property several years ago. And when they got it and got transferred, they rented it out the first time by themselves. I didn't even know it. Except mom called and says, oh my gosh, I have so much more respect for what you do now. I'm like, what do you mean? Says, well, I'm showing all these renters to my son's place. I'm like, oh, okay, well, sorry to do it. And then as he came back to me this last time, this happened just this past November. This happened in November. He'd been on it was right before Thanksgiving. He'd been on the market since October 1. And here's what they thought. Well, I'm on Zillow. I've gotten 20 people to look through the property. I got 35 applications. What's my thought? What are you doing wrong? I mean, my gosh, because Zillow, they have a click, apply now. And so the rent by owner thinks they're getting these applications when the person hasn't even seen the property yet.
Okay.
And so I stopped that with the Zillow. I'm not going to pass this on to the landlord until we see the property first. When do you want to meet? Or I'm having an open house on Sunday, 2 to 5 or whatever. And that's where I got my tenant from, was my open house. And because even with tenants, if you get some good people there, you can find some folks that if you get a good number of people come through, you find the renter, that's great. But you might find some renters who have no idea they could be buying something at $3,000. But he was not understanding the value of the realtor community when it came to rentals. Now, Zillow's important. A lot of agents in our offices who do rentals, you've got to have it on Zillow because that's where consumers are going. And you will get calls from that. What I do is I funnel them into that open house. I don't want to go out there to show every Tom, Dick, and Harry.
Well, they don't show half the time.
Right.
They have no obligation to you. We discovered that really quickly. The open houses for Zillow people.
Yeah.
If they come, they come. If they don't, they don't.
Yeah. And then the landlord by owner, they're thinking, oh, this other person, I'm coming in for a landing with this guy. And this is what literally happened. I'm coming in for a landing. He has agreed. He's got a co-signer. It's his sister who's a dentist and makes a buku amount of money. And my guy agreed, and we've signed paperwork. Then he says, this other person says she wants to come in and see it. I think they'd be a better choice. I'm like, this is very uncomfortable. We've already told them that they got it and we're filling out the lease. But I will follow up with her. Okay. And so I followed up with her, found out her score is like in the 500s. Mom's going to have to sign on. And I'm like, this is not a good fit. He goes, oh, I didn't know that. And that's what the realtor, for rent by owner, FRBOs, I guess, they just, unless they've done this, and I find it many times, military folks, they know what they're doing. They get it done. And but this particular one, they had it on Zillow, they had it on military by owner, and all the stuff they were getting. And this is what I say to them. I said, a lot of times, not always, but I would say the majority of people who aren't coming to you with a realtor is because their credit stinks. And they need you to be okay with their bad credit. I said, we don't know why, but something happens when it drops below 630. These are the folks that they just do not have a handle on how to manage their money at under 630 and even 630 or so. They're missing payments to you. I'll pay you in 2 weeks. You don't want that because most landlords have one property. If you look at the records out there and you do a tax search, and I know you guys aren't nerdy like me, but every so often I'll say, okay, how many properties in our world are absentee? overwhelming majority are absentee owners who own one property. They're not these corporate guys that own 10 and 15 properties. Most of them just have one property and they have a mortgage on it. And if that person misses a payment, they're in trouble. Okay, so that's kind of where that comes from. So on this compensation piece here, be looking at those are okay. Residential sales contract. All right, see, no problem. Sure. Y'all know where to put this? I would say this, we had this happen this year. Buyer broker compensation. It wasn't us, we were the listing. The lady put the 3 on the wrong side of this line. She put $3, not 3%. And when the contract came through, we ratified, the seller picked it up. And he says, looks like I only owe her $3. And buy the paper. So make sure you get on the right side here. It'd be on her. We worked it out, but it wasn't 3, so she lost. So make sure that you have this cleared out. That's definitely on there. But remember, the line here is if I don't put the 3% or whatever I put in my buyer broker agreement, I cannot get it on the contract. Okay. So this is where you put your 3. You put your 3.5 or whatever you're putting, and then you come back. If you can't get it, you come back to the brokerage representation agreement amendment and you change it down where you need to go. This is why I don't like it when agents do. I've had some, this was early on, they're not doing it now. They put 2.5 in the buyer broker agreement. They get 3 on the contract, which right out the front, they've violated what this is supposed to look like. And then they go back getting more money in this brokerage agreement amendment. That just doesn't look good to start with. And it does violate the practice that was put out to us by the NAR agreement. So put 3, ask for 3. Referral agreement. Okay. I've seen this come back and bite some agents. Referral agreement. Here it is. Customer's transaction is completed. A percentage of the commission paid to the receiving brokerage. Be sure that in NVAR, this is the way that's in the NVAR contract, in the referral agreement. I've had some agents receive less than, let's say it's a 25% commission referral, and it's a $10,000 gross commission. And suddenly they're getting, like, instead of 25%, they're getting 12.5. When I go back to the brokerage agreement, the referral agreement, it was usually something written up by their brokerage or their agent's team, and they've changed this commission paid to the receiving brokerage to commission paid to the agent. And they'll make an argument that, well, I am on a team and I only make 60%, and then I have a split. So I gave you 25% of my 40%. And the way they had it written, we had no argument. So don't just plop in 25% on a referral agreement without reading this whole, what am I getting 25% on? To make sure that you're getting what you expected to be getting. And if they have some sort of wonky writing there that's part of what they're getting, then you want to change that. Say, no, I want what the receiving brokerage is getting. Because remember, this is an agreement between KW United and ABC Brokerage. It's not agent to agent, it's brokerage to brokerage. Because in Virginia and most states around the country, agents have to be under a brokerage. So the brokerage is the one getting the compensation. Then they have to refer it out. Okay, from there. But you're wanting what the receiving brokerage is getting, not what the agent is receiving.
So, Anthony, are you saying that we should change that commission paid to receiving broker?
It is on the NVAR.
Okay.
This is if you're referring something out to someone. Check this paragraph. Because if they say commission paid to the receiving agent, then you just receive to get 25% of what that agent's getting instead of the full commission amount.
Gotcha.
And this has happened a couple of times this last year.
Okay.
So again, as an agent and in your business, you want to start looking at what am I doing with my paperwork? How am I negotiating my pay? If you're having a difficult time believing that you are worth 30%, 40%, 3%, whatever, then you need to start working on what's going on in my head. How come I don't see the value? Okay. Listing brokerage compensation. The one I want to point out here is obviously go for the higher commission rate. Some agents, if they do a lot of like free staging, I'll design it, I'll work on it. I'm seeing as high as 4% here. Those are with agents that have systems in place to really prep the property and absorb that cost. And they'll say, look, if you need me to paint the place, put in new carpet and all that stuff, I'll do that for 4%. Or 4.5%, whatever. Okay. But this is the one that really catches my attention. The additional listing brokerage compensation for an unrepresented buyer. I see this blank a lot. And I really think it's more of a believability issue than it is of that it's worth my time to work with an unrepresented buyer and not get paid any more than what I'm getting paid for the listing side. This is for the listing side. This is for when I have to step in and work the buyer side. Okay. And so I put 1.5% here. So that would mean I'm getting 4.5% if I wind up with an unrepresented buyer. And then the brokerage service fee, I do charge, again, my $4.95. I've not done a retainer fee. Early termination. You're putting out real money. You need to get refunded. Some people put documented marketing costs. Some just put a flat fee. I put $1,000 down there. I've seen as much as $4,000 on early termination. All right. So you can get paid more if you explain again, here's everything I'm going to do. Use the presentation to show what kind of work you're going to do for them. How long it's going to take to make that happen. This does not happen overnight. I have a video on my channel that talks about how long does it really take to sell a house. It's got over 500 views because I point out that it's not, I sold it in 3 days. No, it might have sold in 3 days or 5 days or 10 days, but to get that puppy on the market and to get to closing, it's a lot longer than that. Because you're going in and doing the consultation, you're going in and you're doing the organization of vendors, painters, carpet layers, all those types of things. You're helping them stage, you're helping them declutter. You may even be actually carrying out boxes. So this is a lot of hard work that we only get paid at closing. We don't get paid beforehand with all this stuff. So if they are going to cut out because we decided to go a different direction, fine, I need $1,000 from you. Or $2,000 or whatever this number is here. And wow, you lucked out. You got both the buyer and the broker. Well, it's not lucked out. I now have to do that work that a full-time agent was doing. And now I've got to do it. Happy to have the income, but that doesn't mean that I'm doing the same amount of work for less money. Okay. All right. I think I've explained before who's paying the commission and where that money comes from. Does everyone here know that layout that I put? I could put it on the wall here again. Because like what they're saying is like, well, they're already paying the buyer broker. I don't approach it that way. I talk about no buyer, no compensation. I think everyone on here, I've talked about that before, so I don't know if I need to review that. But whenever they're saying, I don't want to pay the buyer agent, that's where I go into my discussion on, well, I appreciate that, but the buyer's actually bringing all the money to the table. And you're not the only one that is bringing the money to the table. Okay? Y'all know that, that presentation I've done? Yes, no, maybe so?
No.
No? Okay, all right.
Yes.
You're right. Okay. All right, so I'll just review it one more time just for this this presentation, which I am recording. And what it is when we talk about how much is the seller paying for the compensation, I always say, well, actually, the agent who's bringing the buyer is bringing all the money to the table. And all this is let's just say it's a $500,000 sales price, okay? And they have a mortgage of $300,000. It's $200,000. They've got. Now they say, well, you're charging me 3. Why should I pay 5 or whatever, or 6? Why should I pay them that money? Well, the buyer is the one that's bringing in. This is the seller. The buyer is bringing in all the money. 500 plus about another 3%. They're bringing in $515,000 to the table. And this is the first thing that gets paid is the mortgage. Now the seller has $200,000. And we say usually of all the expenses, it's about 6 or 7%. Let's say 7. It's another $35,000. So that brings it down to $165,000. So they're walking away with all expenses paid. They're getting.
That poet.
They're getting $165,000. Okay.
Yesterday. Did you read it?
No.
Got it. All right. But what's really happening here is the buyer is the one bringing all the money to the table. Okay. They're bringing in, let's say they're doing 20%. So they're bringing in $100,000 and they're borrowing $400,000. Okay. All they are asking for is some money at the table to pay their agent. That's what they're asking for. It is the cash from the buyer plus the equity from the seller that pays all the expenses. So, Mr. Seller, I appreciate it looks like that. And in our closing documents, it does show it on your side of the page. But the buyer brought all the money to your side. They brought all the money to help you get down to your $165,000 net. You bought the house for $250,000. Okay. You took the mortgage out up to $300,000 because you refinanced. And now they're paying off your mortgage with the money they went and borrowed. And so really it's their cash and your equity is what's paying all the expenses. So it's not really that you're paying them. Okay. It's not
Thanks.
really that you're paying them. You mute somebody here apparently. All right. Yeah, it is that the buyer is bringing all this cash to the table, and then whatever equity you have here is what you get to cash out with. You get to enjoy the rest of it, because sometimes they did buy it for 300. Their mortgage is now 100, but when they got to 500, they went out and refinanced and did whatever they did with it. Now they're closing this account, this real estate account, and taking their balance out there tax-free. So I use this a lot with sellers if they think, I don't want to pay both sides of the transaction. I understand. It looks that way. Actually, the buyer's money and the bank's money is paying everything, and you're cashing out your equity with their money. Does that make sense?
Yep.
And then I say, so when you go buy something, are you going to pay your buyer agent, or are you going to do the same thing? Bring all this money to the table and ask for a little bit back. 1.5%, 2.5%, 3%, 4% back to pay their closing costs for their agent. That's how and they may say, well, I see that's another way of looking at it. I said, no, that is the way to look at it. That's what it is. They're bringing the money so you can pay your expenses. That's what's happening there. So that is another way these are all the ways for you to start looking at, how can I keep my money, and how can I charge the appropriate amount of money for the services that I do, and what is the mindset that I need to be in to charge those items that I need to charge for my services. And I am worth it. I bring value to the table. That really is the number one thing. Okay. All right. Good deal.